Commander Rail's hands were trembling. His fleet, the pride of the Galactic Defense Federation, was now little more than a cloud of wreckage. The Ravagers, an unknowable enemy whose only known trait was that it did not speak to survivors, had them surrounded. 8 capital ships remained from 40. Their shields flickered like dying stars. On the main viewer, the enemy vessels pulsed with a sickly, organic light. They didn't look built, they looked grown. "Commander, the Valiant's heart has been compromised. Life pods are not ejecting," his tactical officer reported, voice hollow. Rail closed his eyes. The rules of war were clear. You fought, you retreated, you negotiated, or you died. But there was one other rule, a clause buried in the oldest, most encrypted archives, Article Omega. In the face of absolute existential extinction, a signal may be sent. It is not a call for allies, it is a plea for monsters. He had sworn never to use it. The histories were too vague, the warnings too severe. You may win the battle, but you will lose the night, the archives had said. A final Ravager lance speared through the Valiant's heart. It bloomed into silent, beautiful fire. Rail opened his eyes. Opened the Omega channel. Full spectrum broadcast. No encryption. "Sir, the Council forbade." "The Council," Rail said softly, watching another of his ships disintegrate, "is about to be dead. Send it." A single ancient frequency, unused for millennia, pulsed out into the void. It was not a distress call, it was a beacon, a dinner bell. The signal went out, then nothing. The Ravagers continued their advance, methodical, silent. But on Rail's bridge, a different silence fell. It was the silence of a tomb. His officers looked at their sensors, then at each other, confusion turning to a dawning primal dread. "Commander, all long-range sensors just went offline, not jammed, they're dead. Gravimetric sensors are detecting massive distortions," the science officer whispered. "But there's nothing there. Space itself is wrong." The enemy fleet slowed. Their pulsing lights grew erratic, frantic. For the first time, the Ravagers seemed uncertain. Rail pulled up the fragmented historical record, the one attached to Article Omega. The text was sparse, the video corrupted. He saw glimpses, a swarm like the Ravagers, but larger, a world cracking like an egg, then new ships, dark, angular, moving with a silence more profound than the void. The recording ended with a single line of text, a translation from a dead language. "They came, they saw, they ended. We do not speak their name." A junior officer vomited quietly against his console. The Ravagers began to turn, not toward Rail's remaining ships, but away, back toward the system's edge. They weren't attacking anymore. They were trying to flee. They didn't arrive with fanfare. They didn't translate in flashes of light or ripples of energy. They were simply there. One moment, the space between Rail's dying fleet and the retreating Ravagers was empty. The next, it was occupied by 3 ships, human ships. They were colossal, their hulls a non-reflective black that seemed to drink the starlight. No running lights, no engine glow, no weapon ports. They were shaped like grave markers. Space visibly bent around them, a faint shimmer like a heat haze, as if reality struggled to hold their mass. Every sensor on Rail's bridge screamed and then died completely. Only the optical viewers worked, showing the terrifying, silent tableau. The Ravagers fired. Beams of planet-killing energy lanced out and dissipated against the black hulls like rain on stone. No shield flare, no impact, nothing. For a long, agonizing moment, the humans did nothing. They just observed. Then, one of the human ships moved. It didn't bank or turn. It reoriented, as effortlessly as a man shifting his gaze. A section of its hull irised open. No blinding light, no charging sequence. A sphere of perfect darkness shot out, faster than thought. It touched a Ravager capital ship.
The Ravager vessel didn't explode, it unmade. It fractured into geometric slices, then into dust, then into nothing at all. No debris, no energy signature, just erased.
What followed was not a battle, it was a dissection. The human fleet moved with a synchronicity that made the Ravagers' former coordination look clumsy. They didn't communicate, they didn't maneuver in formation. Each ship acted as a perfect, independent part of a single organism. They employed no tactics Rail recognized. One human vessel projected a field that seemed to freeze a group of Ravager fighters in a bubble of crystallized time, before the bubble and everything inside it simply popped out of existence. Another emitted a resonant frequency that caused the organic enemy ships to vibrate apart into their constituent molecules. The Ravagers, the galaxy's ultimate predators, were now prey. They scattered, they hid behind asteroids, they attempted micro-jumps. It made no difference. The humans were implacable, thorough. Within minutes, the 1,000-strong Ravager armada was gone, not defeated, removed. Silence returned, deeper and heavier than before. A channel opened on Rail's bridge, audio only. The voice was calm, genderless, and cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. Threat-designated Ravager has been neutralized. No extant vectors remain. The Omega contract is fulfilled. Rail found his voice, raw with terror and awe. What are you? A pause. We are the solution you requested. We do not fight wars. We end dangers. Ensure you never need to call us again. The channel closed. The black ships turned as one. Space folded around them like paper, and they were gone. Salvation had never tasted so much like ash. Rail's surviving crew did not cheer. They sat in their chairs, shaking, some weeping quietly. They had seen a power so absolute it redefined terror. The Galactic Council was saved. The Ravager menace was extinct. Parades were planned. Medals were struck. But in the quiet corridors of power, a new directive was quietly issued and unanimously ratified. Article Omega was not just buried, its very existence was digitally scoured from every archive. The signal codes were physically destroyed. A single line was added to all galactic tactical databases under maximum threat protocols. Contingency, human intervention. Description, cessation of hostilities at all costs. Surrender, disperse. Do not, under any circumstances, escalate to an existential level. If a human vessel is detected, assume you have already lost. Compliance is the only path to survival. Rationale. They do not seek victory, they seek a permanent end, and they are infinitely more patient than we are. The galaxy had been saved from annihilation, but that night and every night after, Commander Rail stared into the dark between stars and knew true fear. They had called for monsters to drive away the beasts. The monsters had come, and they had left the galaxy with a chilling, unspoken understanding. Some saviors are worse than any apocalypse.